the tension we saw when they were meeting in the area where the Mishkan is in Givon, that the military leader of the house of Shaul, Avner, started training with Yoav, who was the leader of the army of David, and that training and sport led to mischief, and that mischief led to killing one another. Hundreds of people, Jews, were killed by one another, which is terrible. And finally, a peace treaty was made, and everyone went their own way. We're now told in the span of the next coming years, the house of Shaul is weak. Even though it's ruling over 10 tribes, the truth of the matter, slowly and slowly, people are leaving their support of Shaul and bringing their support to David, who's in Hebron. David, through a lot of humility, a lot of fear of godliness, is not pushing himself. He's not doing political things to try to win the support. David is a true Jew. He's a God-fearing Jew, a loving Jew. And he realized that to become a king over all of Israel could very well be a tahalich, a process, and not like this. The Tanakh shares with us his big family. We see how many wives does he have here that we saw here?
6, no?
Okay, we see number 6 wives. And the last one mentioned is who? What's her name? Eglah. According to Chazal in Pasuk 5, this woman is really Michal. Michal? Wasn't Michal taken away from David and sent over to someone else, as we learned, of course? So there are several answers. She was given over to a man called Paltiel. Look, if she's an Eshet Ish, how can she be given over? So there are several answers, both by the Rishonim, like the Radak, and Chazal, and that, you know what? Chazal talk about 3 people are those that Hashem saw them fleeing from doing a sin, a great sin, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought his name onto them. It's a Vayikra Rabbah Midrash. Yosef, Yael, and Palti. Okay, remember Yosef almost had relations with the mistress, the wife of his master. Yael was about to have an Avera apparently with that non-Jewish king or minister of the army called Sisra. And Palti. Let's just deal with right now with Palti. When the clash was going on, maybe a few years ago, between Shaul and David, Shaul is full of jealousy. It's eating up his heart. It's eating up his life. And he can't stop himself from pursuing to kill David. He even went and took away his daughter, called Michal, and issued her to another man called Palti. We don't understand what's going on. How can you do such a thing? But it's very painful for David, as we're about to read an episode in a few psukim, that he's not married to this very important wife, very good wife called Michal. Michal is the daughter of the former king Shaul. We're going to learn that there's going to be a negotiation in a moment, and apparently what we learn here appears after the negotiation we're going to read in a few psukim. Because if you read ahead, I hope you read ahead. If you didn't, we're going to learn that the minister of the army of the house of Shaul, Mr. Avner Ben Ner, says, I don't want you anymore. I don't want to support you anymore, because he's accused of having relations with a Pilegesh. A Pilegesh is a concubine, a woman that does not have marital obligations, no chuppah, no kiddushin. And this is a Pilegesh of Shaul, or the house of Shaul, that right now, who has a right to be with her? The son of Shaul, Ishbosheth, who's now the king over Shaul. And Ishbosheth, as we read in the next event, talks difficult against Avner ben Ner. What are you doing having relations with my Pilegesh? Which halachically you're not allowed. With anything that's related to the king, you can't even use his staff. You can't use anything that belongs to the king. Okay? Then there's a Gemara that talks about even the staff of the king. Whatever belongs to the king, you as a regular person cannot use. In any event, Avner ben Ner doesn't like the way Ishbosheth is talking to him. He says, I don't want you. I'm going to go give my support to, in Hebron, to David. Now, then, we're going to learn in this chapter that David makes a condition. You want to come and give me support? You go ahead and make sure that my former wife called Michal comes back to live with me, to be married to me. Apparently that event happens earlier because we're now, the Tanakh is telling me who is the sixth child of David in Pasuk. What's his name? Yitra'am, which is, would you call your child Yitra'am? I don't think so. You know, Yitra'am apparently is not the real name, but it's coming to tell us from the word Yitaron. The advantage of all the children is this man here, he's special. Why? Because he comes from a mother called Eglah. Now, no one calls their wives Eglah, but Eglah is a nickname for Habibi, my amiable, my beloved, and so on. Who is it? Chazal say Eglah is Michal. So, we're learning here not according to the order of events, but this child, Yitram, is like Yoter min ha'am. He's more special than anyone else. And Chazal say, so just a halachic answer, how is it that this woman was given over to Palti? So the Midrash says, well, Palti was saved from doing an Aveirah. What do you mean from doing saved? The answer is, he was never, one answer is, he was never married to Palti. She, Michal, was never married to Palti. She was hanging out in the area, waiting. What were they waiting for? That David's going to be killed by Shaul. It never happened. And now, Ishbosheth can hand over his sister, right? Ishbosheth is the son of Shaul. Palti has to be the sister according to this. He hands her over, he's never married. And therefore, she's not prohibited. Or, some say maybe, you know what? That maybe David did give her a divorce and she married someone and now she got another divorce. There are several answers brought by the Radak or brought by Chazal and so on and so forth. God forbid, David is not violating a prohibition of the Torah. Okay? He's now remarrying or reissuing his former wife Michal, and that's important for him. That is important for him. Let's now go on from where we left off, Pasuk Vav, and we'll see how the facts come together. But right now we're told, on the one hand, the malchut of the son of Shaul is weakening. On the other hand, David is getting stronger. Yet, and by the way, we all know that David was anointed to be king by a prophet. And David understands that the day will come that he'll be king over all of Israel, all the 12 tribes. The question is time and patience. Do you know which grocery store you can go to buy patience? You can't. Only in the Beit Midrash. David is patient right now. He's not rocking the boat or shaking or getting nervous. Come and support me, this or that. We practiced this before, sure. Right? It's very good. Okay? So let's now read Bavakasha, the events happening here in Pasuk Vav. Vayi biyot milchama. Bein Beit Shaul uvein Beit David. Vavner haya mitchazek bebeit Shaul. As this stress, the clashes are happening, unfortunately, right? This is a continuation of the propaganda, probably, that Shaul put out against David, as if David is the enemy, and there are people that buy it, and therefore that explains why we had the clashes in the last chapter, and hundreds of Jews were killed. there's tension between the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Shaul, which is Binyamin. It goes on. As a result, who's getting stronger on the side of Binyamin? Avner. That means that the king is like a puppet. Ishbosheth is something symbolic. He doesn't really have power. He's not a man of initiative. But we see it's like a military rule. The kingdom is led by Avner. Avner is like the number one person. Now we understand the events that happened formerly. Avner is sporting with Yoav, and there's tension between them. Pasuk Zayin. Uleshaul pilegesh. Ushma ritzpa vataya. Vayomer el Avner. Madua bata el pilegesh avi. Okay? So here, look.
What does Madua mean?
Madua. Why? Madua. So here we have an event that happens when you're a VIP. Now, we like Avner, we're not talking here about a playboy. We're not talking here about a person who's very low. Avner is a very big tzaddik. He's a very big tzaddik. He's Klal Yisraeli. He represented Israel in the war. He's fantastic. But we all have a Yetzer Hara. And he's very close to the plate. There's an expression in Hebrew, karov letzalachat, you know. Let's see, whoever's a friend of David, it has to be a very important person because he's one of the most important Talmidim here. So, right? Karov letzalachat, right? Karov letzalachat. Okay? Now, Avner is karov letzalachat. Who's the head? Ishbosheth. Now, Ishbosheth, whatever his father had, he inherits, halachically. The Rambam brings the laws in Hilchot Menachem. You just can't inherit the horse of the king if you're not the king's son, or if you're not going to be the next king. You don't inherit his clothing. You don't inherit his horse. You don't inherit his staff. He's in the area, Mr. Avner Ben Ner, and he has relations with a woman who's not an Eshet Ish. A Pilegesh, as we know, is a woman who is not through Kiddushin or through Chuppah married to the person, but rather for marital relations without marital obligations. And he had relations with her. Interesting name she has, isn't it? Ritzpa Vataya. No, Ritzpa does not mean the floor. Ritzpa is from the word Gechalim, coals. Gachelet Eish. Apparently she's a very, very special woman, and she wanted to be also the Pilegesh to the king, and she's the Pilegesh now to the son. And here comes the king, and he ridicules Avner Ben Ner. Why did you have relations with the Pilegesh of my father? What is, everyone read Pasuk Chet and tell me the response of Mr. Avner Ben Ner. What is his reaction? We know that he's he's a VIP. Certainly to a hediot, a layman, a pilegesh of the king is forbidden. But could it be that he considers himself almost like the king? Does he, first of all, let me ask you, does he deny it? Yes or no? He doesn't deny it. Number one, does he say he's sorry? He doesn't say he's sorry. Is he cool-minded or is he angry?
Quite angry.
He's quite angry. Let's read it. The opening word, Vayichar le'avner me'od. Not only the angry, he's very angry. Al divrei Ishbosheth. And he says to him, Vayomer, Harosh kelev anochi? Asher liYudah? Do you think I'm what? I'm head of the dog agency of the Judean army or something like that? Ken? What now, what is he angry at, gentlemen? What is he angry at? He's angry at that Ishbosheth didn't shut up against Avner. In other words, he thinks, look, I'm close to the king. Avner's close to the king. He's keeping the kingdom of Binyamin alive, strong, whatever it is. He probably reasons politically there are times to ignore and don't make comments. Maybe Avner is almost like the king because he's really ruling. And if he's ruling, maybe halachically he thinks, but he's making a mistake. In any event, he's getting angry.
He's also appointed Ishbosheth, right? So he's like feeling like he's in authority.
Exactly. He feels like he's authority. Now he says, Harosh Kelev Anochi. What do you think of the minister of the army of the dog agency of David or something? I'm a little more important than dog. In other words, and he says, let's follow up. Hayom e'eseh chesed in beit shul avicha elechav ve'el mereu ve'lo imtziticha biyad David. In other words, what he's saying is that Ishbosheth is not acting towards him like he should be. He senses that Ishbosheth should bestow kindness. He's gracious. I've been doing a lot for the kingdom of Ishbosheth, and you're not doing chesed back with me. You should have maybe just ignored it. And right now, he's sick of it. Vatifkod alai avona isha hayom. Instead of doing chesed with me, maybe ignoring it, you should have overlooked it. What are you doing? You're remembering my sin today? So he does, I think by saying vatifkod alai avon ha'isha, I think it's true that he's admitting that he did a sin. Avon. I did this avon. However, he's now looking for revenge. And look what he says right now, gentlemen, in Pasuk Tet. Ko yaseh Elokim la'Avner v'cho yosif lo. He's making an oath. Ki kasher nishba Hashem leDavid, ki chen e'eseh lo. La'avir ha'mamlacha mi Beit Shaul, u'lakim et kisei David al Yisrael, ve'al Yehuda, midan ve'ad Beersheva. Gentlemen, he's saying basically the following. Just like God has swore to David. What does he swear to David? And we don't even know where the swearing is. It doesn't appear explicitly here. That David will be king over the entire country. You know what? I'm going to make sure that it's going to happen. I'm going to make sure that what? That God's promise to David to be Melech over all of Israel will come into existence. How? I'm going to remove my support from the Mamlacha of Beit Shaul. And you know what I'm going to do? He's a go-getter. Lahakim et kisei David. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to work in PR. I'm going to go to Hebron. I'm going to speak with him. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm ready to join you. And I'm going to prove how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go around the country to bring you support. Look how confident he is. He's very confident. And look at the term what he uses. We'll bring the throne of David over Israel, Ve'al Yehuda. Who represents, which tribes are Israel? The 10 tribes. Excellent. Yehuda is the only tribe of David right now. From Dan to Beersheva.
Where's Dan?
Where's Dan? We're in the north.
Lebanon?
No. No, what?
Lebanon?
No. It's under the Hermon. Why is it called Dan? Isn't Dan Petach Tikva and Bnei Brak? We learned this in Sefer Shoftim. They captured an area called Leshem, or the area, and they named it after Dan. So one of the sources of water up north is the Dan River, like the Banyas, like the Hermon. Banyas, Dan, what are the sources? Banyas, Dam, the Yarmukh, they all go into the Jordan, the Jordan. So why is it called Dan? After the tribe of Dan that started settling up north after they captured that area. So it's under the Hermon. It's under Syria. We have lovely Nechalim there, lovely rivers, springs there, and so on and so forth. In any event, if you want to talk about geographic expanse, this term appears several times in the Tanakh. From Dan, up north, all the way down to Beersheva. That's the term that is used. Pasuk Yud Aleph, let's continue with the words of the chief of staff of the army of Shaul son Avner. V'lo yichol od lashiv et Avner davar mi'yirato. I think this pasuk tells it all. Avner tells off the king. The king is just stunned, standing there, and is like he's like flabbergasted. He's flabbergasted. He can't say anything. He can't respond. Out of what? Yirato. What is yira? Fear. He is not able to say anything. Avner packs up and goes. Pasuk Yud Bet. Vayishlach Avner malachim el David tachtav lemor lemi aretz lemor kartav ritcha iti v'nei yadi imach lasev elecha et kol Yisrael. Gentlemen, why do you think that Avner sends shlichim to Hebron, to David, with his intent. Why do you think he's sending shlichim?
He's scared.
He's scared? What do you mean?
That he get attacked. So that he to send a message is coming in peace.
The message is coming in peace. It could be that there might be sniper fire and killing him. Remember, when the two sides met in Givon, we know what it turned into. It's true that there's a Heskem Shalom. Now there is a peace treaty between the two sides. But we opened up the Perek that the Milchama, the clashes, is very going on for a long time. That's how the Perek opened up in Pasuk Aleph, if you saw. So Avner is smart. He sends a message. My purpose is Lemi Aretz. Lemi Aretz. Who does the land belong to? God. He's taking a shvuah. Okay, the Chazal and the Rashi brings it here that I'm taking an oath to the one that is in the owner of the land, of the earth. Where do we see a pasuk like that David wrote? Lemi haaretz. Right. Where's that? Is that Perek Lamed in Tehillim? That's the Shir Shel Yom of Yom Rishon. LeDavid Mizmor, LaHashem, Haaretz Umloah, the land and everything that fills up with it, Tevel V'Yoshveva. All of the earth, everything that's inhabiting it, LaHashem. LaHashem Haaretz Umloah. Is that chapter 30, this Shir Shel Yom? I forgot it, but that's the pasuk you're referring to? Okay. So, Lemi Haaretz means to God. God, who does the land, the earth belong to? It belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avner is sending through the shlichim an oath in God's name. It's a serious statement. And what is he demanding? Karta britcha iti. I want you to make a brit with me, a covenant, an agreement. Okay? And all this is a shvuah. And why? That what? Yadi imach, my hand. The hand is significant of my force, my power, my abilities. You see that inside in Pasuk Yud verse 12? V'hinei yadi imach lasei ve'elechet kol Yisrael. I'm ready to go out and bring you wide support from the entire country. What is David's? He gets the post office, he gets a piece of mail. What is David's reaction? A few days later, Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayomer Tov. Who's speaking? David. Vayomer Tov, he agrees. Ani echrot, follow the reading in Hebrew. Ani echrot itcha brit. Ach, however, davar echad anochi shoel meitcha lemor. I have a condition. You want to bring me support? I have a condition. Lo tiret panai. Don't even dare see me. Kim lefnei aviacha et Michal bat Shaul bevoacha lerot panai. So my dear friends, David agrees to receive Avner as a supporter, which has to be so significant. The leaders, one of the leaders of the tribe of Benjamin who brought Ishbosheth into office, more or less. However, David says, I want a condition. I want a condition from the kingdom of Beit Shaul, from Mr. Ishbosheth, who really is not a strong power, but rather like a puppet, like a balloon blown up with air. He's not powerful whatsoever. Now, especially that his army commander has left. I want Mrs. Michal. I want her back over to me as my wife. Now, let me ask you something. Why is David Aleph interested in Michal? Number two, why is David doing this through Ishbosheth, who's the king? What is he interested in showing to the public? That what? Right. We know that David is much stronger than Ishbosheth. Is David? What is David looking for? Why is it important that he has? That he's asking this condition that before Avner joins me, he's asking that he get his wife back, Mrs. Michal. What is David interested in?
Shalom in the house of Shaul.
The house of Shaul. What is the strategic importance of having the house of Shaul over?
then that shows there's actually like a truce or like a bond.
Okay, so number one, if the daughter of Shaul comes back to David, that's showing that there's really peace between the two houses. As a result, people, wow, is that right? So people probably interpret that politically, that there's a real truce, that there's real peace between Yehuda and Binyamin. Now, it's not that David needs Mr. Avner to be AWOL and leave his support from that. But the question is, will the kingdom of David stretch, be stronger? Because some of the commentators compare the kingdom of David to like a fruit that's beginning to ripen. As time goes, it becomes more ripe. And as more time goes, it becomes even more ripe. David is like a tree that's becoming more ripe. He sees in Avner, no, it's not Avner. You know, he sees in Avner maybe just like what we call in Hebrew a bore katan, like a little screw, a little boat. Who is though more important? He wants tzedek. He wants to show the country that it's proper, that he gets from Shaul or Shaul's house. This woman, it was improper that she was taken away. And David is interested in honesty. David is interested in values. He wants the nation to understand who he really is, because there are parts of the nation that don't understand him. So Aleph values number bet. If they see that she's from the house of Shaul coming back to him, that it could have a big impact on people. So right now, at this moment, before she comes over, David is really disattached to the kingdom of Shaul. Until the competition was going on, David was considered what? The son-in-law of the king. David was the chatan of the melech. Okay? As long as Michal was with him, he was the chatan of the melech. When Shaul took the law into his own hand and separated Michal from David, that means David was separated from the kingdom. He would like to be reunited to the house of Shaul, which will bring a lot of things. Right now, there's a wound, an open wound in David's heart that Shaul did. Remember, David was always willing to forgive Shaul for all the misdemeanors or major crimes that were done to him. But this is a major thing that has to be corrected. So David would like to go back and be considered nationally the son-in-law of the former king, which will obviously bring him other positive results to the kingdom. Pasuk Yudalid, Vayishlach David Malachim Elish Boshet ben Shulei Mor Tenat Ishti. David does the work himself. He sends Malachim. After talking to Mr. Avner ben Ner, he himself sends Shlichim to Ishboshet. Remember, Ishboshet is not 20, 30 kilometers away in Binyamin. Ishboshet is sitting on the other side of the Jordan River in a place called Machanaim. Okay? And look what he states. Look how he states it. Tonight ishtiet Michal asher erasti li b'me'ah orlot plishtim. David says, you know, once upon a time he still is a hard worker, but David made a condition that if he goes to war then, a few years ago, against the Plishtim, and he collects the tips, the orlot of the enemy, and he did it, and David is very strong, then he deserves to have Michal. So he says it. That was a legal thing. I did it. That was my power, my strength, and it was a wrong thing. What is Ishboshet's reply to this gentleman? Pasuk Tedvav. No, he did the right thing when he won a war, and he deserved to have it. To have Michal. Pasuk Tedvav. Vayishlach Ishboshet. Excuse me. Vayikachea me'im ish. Me'im Paltiel ben, how do we read this? Laish. Lavish was written that way, but we'll read it Laish. I want to ask all of you to be very precise in the pasuk. It says Vayishlach ish boshet. What's not stated? Who? But when we read the next word, Vayikachea, and he took her. Who's he? David took who? Michal. Me'im ish. Interesting. It says Me'im ish.
With the man?
No, Me'im ish. And what's not stated? Who was Michal taken from? Huh?
From
Mr. Palti. Now we've been arguing that some of the halachic answers are that she was never married to Palti. Otherwise, David could not get her back. So look what the Tanakh does not say. It does not say that he took her from Ba'ala, her husband. It says he took her from Ish. Okay? Me'im Paltiel ben Lachush. Okay? Gentlemen, all this is supporting the answer that Chazal say that Michal was not married to Mr. Palti. Because if it would be, it would have said, Vaikacha me'im isha. Do you know what me'im isha with a point inside the hay means?
Oh,
What? His wife. Isha would be reflexive, right? If we have
No, wait.
it doesn't say.
No, her husband.
That's right. It doesn't say that he took her from Ha'ish Shalah, from her man. Her man would be her husband. She was not taken from her husband. Just the man that's responsible for her. Maybe he's feeding her. If she's living in a different home, there's no marital relations, there's no marriage. He didn't take her from her. So this idea supports what Chazal say. And look what Palti is doing. Haloch uvacho achareha ad Bachurim. Bachurim is a place, I think, in the Binyamin desert, going down to Mitzpeh Yericho, in that area. It's in the Binyamin area. So, gentlemen, the condition is being met. Vayomer elav Avner lech shuv vayashov. This is, how many tissues can you give Palti that he's crying for not going to have Michal in the area? He's crying. How many tissues can you give him to wipe the...
He was happy, no?
No, he's crying. He's very saddened that she's not going to be a potential wife. What we're explaining now is, according to the Shita, she was never married to Palti. Right now that she's being taken away from Palti, it hurts him. He's crying. Avner says, until here you escort her, the rest of the way she's going to come with me, and you go back to where you were living before. So this is the story. A very crucial act is happening here. Avner ben Ner is about to join David HaMelech in Hebron. Michal is coming back. That explains the beginning of the chapter, that Michal is remarried or back to her husband and they have a child already, as we're told about the complex family of David. We read in the beginning of the chapter, he has 6 wives. And yes.
I thought they never had children.
Very good. From that time on, that she acted not properly to David and she was cursed by God, she didn't have a child from that time on.
How was she acting improperly?
When David was bringing the Aron HaKodesh to the old city, he started jumping up like a young boy, doing all these things like you do in front of a Sefer Torah, on Simchat Torah. Did you ever watch this guy dance on Simchat Torah? He does all these, just in honor of the Torah. Michal says, no, you're the king. You're not allowed to do that. You have to keep your honor. A black tie, a handkerchief here. Okay, that's what she said, in my words. So, and then, of course, in honor of the Torah, you can dance and do anything you want. In any event, so they have a child called Yitram, as we learned. Let's continue a few more. That's what we said at the beginning of the Yoter min ha'am. He's super special. Okay. Vi'ata. Let's read Pasuk Yud Zayin. Udvar Avner haya im ziknei Yisrael le'mor. Gam timo, gam shilsho. Hayitem mevakshim et David lemelech alechem. Mr. Avner says, the importance of David. You remember how important he was. He was a leader. He was the defense minister of Shaul. You wanted to give him support in the past. He's talking now to the scholars of Israel and of the 10 tribes. Avner is already beginning to do PR work, public relations work. He honestly thinks David should be now more ripe to be king over everyone. So before he even joins David in the Benjamin area, maybe the Ephraim area, the northern tribes over here, he's trying to convince others. Pasuk Yudchet, V'ata asu ki Adonai amar el David lemor biyad David avdi hoshiat ami Yisrael miyad Plishtim umiyad kol oivehem. Ken, all these are the words of Avner gaining more support, explaining the greatness of David. Ken, because Hashem himself called David Avdi. Not many individuals in the Tanakh are called the Eved of Hashem like Moshe or Yoshua. And of course, David is famous for winning the wars of Israel against the Plishtim and anyone else. David has an amazing record. Avner doesn't stop talking to the leaders of the northern tribes. He continues going south, talking to the leaders of Binyamin. Pasuk Yutet, Vaydaber gam Avner be'oznei Binyamin. What is he talking about? That the time is now right to give support to David. Vayelech kam Avner ledaber be'oznei David bechevron, and now he arrives. He arrives after Michal is given. He arrives fulfilling the condition that he was given. And he now talks to David. But it says he talks to David be'oznei David. Seems to be a one-on-one meeting. Only between David and Avner. So Avner's arrived in Hebron. And what does he speak? At kol asher tov b'nei Yisrael v'nei kol beit Binyamin. He's already bringing a report card. He's bringing a doch, a din v'cheshbon. He's bringing a report card. I've spoken to the leaders of the tribes. I've spoken to the leaders of my own tribes. Michal has been delivered over, and things are looking dandy. They're looking just improving. You're going to get more support. Pasuk Kaf. Vayavo Avner el David Chevron v'ito 20 anashim. Wow. Vayas David l'Avner v'el anashim asher ito mishteh. He comes with a squadron of soldiers, apparently. He comes with 20 people. Avner arrives. He doesn't come alone. He's an important person. He has an accompaniment of 20 people. And David seems to be accepting him. No suspicions. And he makes a mishteh. Would you bring the Sheves Regal? The JB. The Jewish booze.
That's his humor.
Bring out the schnapps. You know what schnapps is? Now I'm talking. Now we're talking. Okay? It says David is making a mishteh. So we're up to something very vital here. And that is that David is accepting these matters. The question is, what will Yoav, who sparred against Avner, he is brother of Avishai, and the loss of the brother Asael, will Yoav be able to rise to the occasion that maybe it's time for unity? Or will Yoav think suspiciously that maybe this is like, one of these espionage matters, that he's maybe spying for Ishbosheth? It's a very sensitive matter, very volatile, as we'll see in our next show, Be'ezrat Hashem. We'll continue from here.